The Panzer I. Learning to walk. The Panzer I was never meant to fight. It was a training vehicle, a way to get crews into tanks and start building the skills the German army would need later. It weighed just under 6 tons, carried 2 machine guns, and had armor thin enough that a heavy rifle round could cause problems at the right angle. It was slow, it was small, and it was sent to war anyway. During the Spanish Civil War in 1936 and 1937, German volunteers used the Panzer I in combat alongside Franco's forces and came back with a clear verdict. It was not a fighting tank. The armor was too light, the armament was too weak, and it could not stand up to anything the enemy had that was designed to fight back. But it taught German crews how to operate tanks in real conditions, and that turned out to matter more than anyone expected. The Panzer II. Slightly better, still not enough. The Panzer II was a step forward. It added a 20mm autocannon, which at least gave it a chance against lightly armored vehicles. The armor was still thin, the weight was still low, and it was still not a tank you would want to fight something serious with. It served in Poland in 1939 and France in 1940, mostly doing reconnaissance work and filling gaps in German armored formations while the better tanks were still arriving in numbers. Like the Panzer I, it stayed in service longer than anyone planned, because there was not always something better ready to replace it. The Panzer III, the first real fighter. The Panzer III was what Germany actually wanted from the start. Medium tank with a proper gun, armor that could stop most things it was likely to face, and a 3-man turret crew that allowed the commander to focus on the battle instead of also loading the gun. Early versions carried a 37mm cannon, which was adequate in 1938 and already falling behind by 1941. The design was upgraded repeatedly, moving through a 50mm short gun and then a longer, higher velocity 50mm that improved penetration significantly. The hull was well designed and capable of absorbing upgrades, which kept the Panzer III relevant longer than its original specifications suggested it should be. It was the backbone of the German armored force through the early years of the war and fought in Poland, France, North Africa, and the opening campaigns in the Soviet Union. The Panzer IV, the one that lasted. The Panzer IV started life as a support tank. Where the Panzer III was meant to fight enemy armor, the Panzer IV was designed to use its short-barreled 75mm gun to destroy enemy fortifications and infantry positions. The two were supposed to work as a team. What nobody fully anticipated was that the Panzer IV's chassis was strong enough and large enough to be upgraded into a genuine tank destroyer when the situation demanded it. When German forces met Soviet T-34s and K-51s in 1941 and found that their standard weapons could not reliably penetrate the armor, the Panzer IV received a long-barreled, high-velocity 75mm gun that changed its role completely. The Panzer IV went from a support vehicle to the primary German medium tank almost by accident. It served from the first day of the war to the last and was produced in larger numbers than any other German tank. That alone says a great deal about how useful it turned out to be. The Panther, the best tank Germany built. The Panther was the direct answer to the T-34. German engineers studied captured examples, took notes on the sloped armor and the wide tracks, and built something that incorporated those lessons while pushing the performance further. The result was a 45-ton medium tank with a long 75mm gun that could punch through almost anything it faced at long range, heavily sloped front armor that was very difficult to penetrate from the front, and a top speed of around 55 kilometers per hour on a good road. On paper, it was exceptional. In the field, early versions were a maintenance disaster. The Panther was rushed into service for the Battle of Kursk in July 1943, before the mechanical problems had been properly resolved. Engines overheated, final drive units failed, fuel leaked in ways that started fires. A significant number of Panthers broke down before they ever made contact with the enemy at Kursk, and those that did fight took heavy losses partly because crews and commanders were still learning how to use them effectively. But the design itself was sound. Later production versions were far more reliable. and the Panther became a dangerous opponent when it was working properly. Allied tank crews consistently rated it as the most capable German tank they encountered, more so than the Tiger, which got more of the attention. The Tiger I. Fear as a strategy. The Tiger I was slow, heavy, and used fuel at a rate that caused serious logistical problems throughout its service life. It also had 100 millimeters of armor on the front and an 88 millimeter gun that could destroy any Allied tank in service at ranges where the Allied tank could not reliably shoot back. That combination made the Tiger I into something beyond a weapon. It became a reputation. Allied tank crews who reported contact with Tigers were sometimes reporting Panzer IVs. The name alone caused hesitation. German propaganda made full use of it, and the Tiger became the symbol of German armored power in a way that shaped how the tank war was remembered long after it ended. In reality, Germany produced fewer than 1,350 Tigers during the entire war. They were expensive, complicated to maintain, hard to transport by rail because of their width, and required a specialized recovery vehicle to tow when they broke down because regular equipment could not handle the weight. Every Tiger that sat broken by the side of a road waiting for parts was a significant loss. They were most effective in defensive positions where their range advantage and thick armor could be used to hold ground against numerically superior forces. In that role, they were genuinely difficult to deal with. As an offensive weapon meant to lead armored thrusts, the logistics made them far harder to use well. The Tiger II. Heavier, slower, more expensive. The Tiger II, also called the King Tiger or Königstiger, was the heaviest tank Germany put into production. It weighed around 70 tons, carried 150 millimeters of frontal armor angled to improve protection further, and mounted a long 88 millimeter gun that was even more capable than the one in the Tiger I. It was nearly impossible to destroy from the front. Allied tank crews generally had to find ways to hit it from the side or rear, or wait for it to break down, which it did with some regularity given the strain that 70 tons put on a drivetrain designed at the outer edge of what German engineering could reliably produce. Germany built around 490 Tiger IIs before the war ended. Each one took the manufacturing resources of several Panzer IVs. The strategic logic of building them instead of larger numbers of simpler tanks was questioned at the time and has been questioned by historians ever since. The Jagdpanzer and tank destroyer family. Not everything Germany built in the later war was an over-engineered monster. The tank destroyer program produced some very effective vehicles by taking existing tank chassis and replacing the rotating turret with a fixed superstructure housing a powerful gun. This was cheaper to build, faster to produce, and in many cases more effective at the specific job of killing enemy tanks. The Jagdpanzer IV used the Panzer IV chassis and a low-profile design that made it hard to spot and hit. The Jagdpanther used the Panther chassis and the same long 88 millimeter gun as the Tiger I in a package that was faster and easier to maintain than the heavy tanks. Tank crews who served in Jagdpanthers consistently reported high kill numbers, partly because the vehicle was genuinely capable and partly because its low silhouette made ambush tactics very effective. These designs pointed toward what German armored vehicle philosophy might have looked like if the war had been fought on a more realistic industrial budget from the beginning. The Maus and the projects that never were. As the war turned against Germany, Hitler became increasingly interested in extremely large tank designs. The Maus was the most extreme example to actually reach hardware. It weighed approximately 188 tons. For reference, a Tiger I weighed 57 tons. The Maus was so heavy it could not cross most bridges and would have sunk into soft ground under its own weight. 2 prototypes were built. Neither saw combat. One was partially destroyed by German forces before it could be captured. The other was eventually reassembled from parts of both and today sits in a museum outside Moscow. The engineering effort that went into the Maus, the Rada, the E-100, and the other super-heavy designs of the late war period represented thousands of man-hours that went into vehicles that could not have changed anything, even if they had been completed and deployed.